Inferential peace. It is urgent to comprehend the techniques of meditation profoundly. Today we will talk about the illuminating void. To begin this subject, I feel the obligation to explain directly what I have verified for myself regarding the illuminating void. Those who are listening are already informed about the marvelous law of reincarnation, for it is upon that law that I base the following story. When the second sub-race of our current great Aryan race flourished in ancient China, I was reincarnated there. My name then was Zhou Li, and I was a member of the Zhou dynasty. In that existence, I became an active member of the Order of the Yellow Dragon. It is clear that in that order, I was able to learn the science of meditation perfectly. Even now, there comes to my memory that marvelous instrument called the Aya Akaparus, which had 49 notes. We know what the sacred law of Heptaparaparshinok is. That is to say, the law of 7. Undoubtedly, the notes of the musical scale are 7. If we multiply 7 by 7, we obtain 49 notes in 7 octaves. The brothers held their meetings in the meditation room. We used to sit in the Oriental style with crossed legs, placing the palms of the hands right over left. We sat in a circle in the center of the room and closed our eyes. Immediately, we would give profound attention to the music that a brother played for the cosmos and for us. When the artist caused the first note to vibrate, which was do, all of us were concentrated. When he made the next note, re, vibrate, the concentration became more profound. We were fighting against the different subjective elements that we carried within ourselves. We would recriminate them to make them understand the necessity of being in absolute silence. It is good to remind my dear brothers that those undesirable elements are the I, the ego, the myself, perverse entities that personify our errors. When the note me was in vibration, we were penetrating the third zone of the subconsciousness to confront the multiplicity of those diverse psychic aggregates that live in disorder within us and impede the quietude and silence of the mind. We would recriminate them and seek to understand them. When we achieved that, we then penetrated even more profoundly with the note fa. It is obvious that new struggles appeared with that note, because gagging all those demons of desire is not very easy. Obliging them to keep silence is not simple, but with patience we achieved it. In this form, we would continue with each of the notes of the musical scale. We made the same effort in a higher octave, so that little by little we confronted the different infrahuman elements that we carry within ourselves. Finally, we were successful in gagging them across the 49 levels of the subconsciousness. Then the mind stayed quiet in the most profound silence. That was the instant in which the essence, the soul, the most pure, escaped to experience the real. In that form, we penetrated the illuminating void. In that way, the illuminating void made its eruption in us. And living within it, we could know the laws of nature in themselves as they are, and not as they apparently are. In this three-dimensional world of Euclid, only mechanical causes and effects are known, not the natural laws in themselves. In the illuminating void, they appear before us as they really are. In that state, we could perceive with the essence, with the superlative senses of the being, things in themselves. In the world of physical phenomena, we only perceive things as they appear to be, angles and surfaces, but never a body in its integral form, and the little we do perceive is brief. Nobody could perceive the exact quantity of atoms a chair has. Yet in the illuminating void, we perceive things in themselves as a whole. When we were submerged in the grand illuminating void, we were able to hear the voice of the Secret Father. Undoubtedly, we were in the state that could be called bliss or ecstasy. The personality remained in a passive state, seated in the meditation room. The emotional and motor centers were integrated with the intellectual center, creating a single, receptive whole. In that form, the waves of the experiences we were living in the illuminating void, which were circulating through the silver cord, were received by the three centers, the emotional, intellectual, and motor. When the samadhi was concluded, we returned to our bodies, keeping the memory of all we had seen and heard. However, I must tell you that the first thing we have to leave behind in order to remain submerged for a long time in the illuminating void is fear. The eye of fear must be comprehended. We already know that its disintegration is made possible when we supplicate to the Divine Mother Kundalini in a vehement form. She will eliminate that I. One day, it does not matter when, while in the illuminating void, beyond the personality, the I, and the individuality, submerged in what we could call the no, I felt that I was everything that has been and will be. I experienced the unity of life, free in its movement. I was the flower, the crystalline river that flows in its bed of rocks, singing delicious things in its language. I was the bird that goes to the inscrutable depths, the fish that delightfully swims among the waters, the moon, the worlds. I was all that is, has been, and will be. Because of the myself, the feelings of the I felt fear. I felt that I was being annihilated, that I was ceasing to exist as an individual, that I was everything except an individual, and that the myself had the tendency to die forever. Obviously, I felt an unspeakable fear and came back to my body. New efforts allowed me to achieve the eruption of the illuminating void. Again and again I felt confounded with everything. I had ceased to exist as a person, as an individual, as an I. This state of consciousness was becoming more and more profound until any possibility of existing was ending. Individual existence had the definitive tendency to disappear forever. I could not resist any more, and I returned to my body. I could not resist a third attempt, and I returned to the form. Since then, I know that in order to experience the illuminating void, to feel the Tao in oneself, it is necessary to eliminate the I of fear. That is indubitable. Among the brothers of the Sacred Order of the Yellow Dragon, the one who distinguished himself most was my friend Chang. Today he lives on one of those planets of Christ in which nature does not die and never changes, because there are two natures, the perishable, changing and mutable, and the imperishable that never changes and is immutable. In the planets of Christ there exists the eternal, imperishable, and immutable nature. Chang lives on one of those planets in which the Christ shines. He achieved liberation several ages ago and lives on that far planet with a group of brothers who also achieved liberation with him. I would like to teach the 7 secrets of the Order of the Yellow Dragon, but with pain, I realize that the brothers are not prepared yet to receive them, and this is lamentable. It is also true that today, it is not possible to use the 49 sounds of the Aya Akaparus, because this musical instrument no longer exists. There exist many involutions of this instrument, but they are different and do not have the 7 octaves. Involutions of this instrument include all stringed instruments, violin, guitar, also the piano, etc. However, it is possible to achieve the illuminating void with a simple and practical system that all brothers can practice. I will dictate the technique right now. Pay attention. Take a seat in the Oriental style with crossed legs in this form. Because you are Westerners, this position may be uncomfortable for you. So you may instead sit together in a comfortable sofa in the Western style. Open the palm of your left hand and place the right over the left. That is to say, the back of the right hand over the palm of the left. Relax the body as much as possible and then inhale profoundly and very slowly. While inhaling, imagine that the creative energy ascends through the spermatic channels to the brain. Exhale short and fast. When you inhale, pronounce the mantra Ham. When you exhale, the mantra Sak. Undoubtedly, you must inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth. When inhaling, mantralize the sacred syllable Ham mentally. When you exhale, you can vocalize the syllable SAH sonorously. Ham is written with the letters HAM, and SAH is written with the letters SAH. The inhalation must be slow, the exhalation short and fast. Obviously, the creative energy in everyone flows from the inside to the outside, that is to say, in a centrifugal form. But we must reverse that order with the intention of achieving a spiritual transformation. Our energy must flow in a centripetal form, from the outside to the inside. Undoubtedly, if we inhale slowly, the creative energy will flow in a centripetal form, from the outside to the inside. If we exhale short and fast, then this energy will become increasingly centripetal. During the practice, you must not think of absolutely anything. The eyes must be closed. In our minds, only Hamsa will vibrate and nothing else. As you practice, the inhalation will become more and more profound, and the exhalation very short and fast. The great master of meditation reaches the point in which respiration becomes just inhalation, and then the breathing is suspended. This turns out to be something impossible to scientists, but it is real to the mystics. In that state, the master achieves the Nirvikalpa Samadhi or Mahasamadhi, and the eruption of the illuminating void occurs. One falls into the great void in which nobody lives, and where it is only possible to hear the word of the secret Father. With this practice, it is possible to achieve the illuminating void, but the requisite is not to think of absolutely anything. Do not admit any thought or remembrance into the mind. The mind must be totally quiet inside, outside, and in the center. Here, even the most insignificant thought is an obstacle to achieving samadhi, the ecstasy. The science of meditation combined with respiration produces extraordinary effects. Normally, people suffer from what is called nocturnal pollutions. Men and women have that problem. They have erotic dreams. And if the eyes copulate with each other, the vibration passes through the silver cord to the physical body, and an orgasm occurs with the loss of creative energy. This happens when the sexual energy flows from the inside to the outside in a centrifugal form. When the sexual energy flows from the outside to the inside in a centripetal form, the sexual pollutions end. That is a benefit to one's health. Now, samadhi is achieved during the practice of meditation because the creative energies flowing from the outside to the inside impregnate the consciousness and end up causing it to leave the ego and the body. The consciousness, liberated from the ego and outside of the physical body, undoubtedly penetrates the illuminating void and receives the Tao. If one eliminates the ego of fear, of dread, one will be able to penetrate the illuminating void without any preoccupation. One will feel that the individuality is being dissolved, will feel life in the stone and the rock, in the far star and in the singing bird of any world or planet, but will not feel fear. If one does not feel fear, one will finally gravitate toward their origin, transformed into consciousness, into a creature terribly divine beyond good and evil. One will be able to remain in the sacred absolute sun. In that sun, as a microcosmic star, one will know the mysteries of the universe, because it is good to know that the universe itself, our entire solar system, exists in the intelligence of the sacred absolute sun as an eternal instant. All the phenomena of nature are processed inside an eternal instant in the intelligence of the sacred absolute sun. But if one feels fear, one will lose the ecstasy and return to the dense form. Dear brothers, you must leave fear behind. Undoubtedly, it is not enough to say, I will leave fear. There is the necessity to eliminate the I of fear. Yes, this defect can only be eliminated with the power of the Divine Mother Kundalini Shakti. First, it is necessary to understand it, and then to invoke Devi Kundalini, our particular Divine Cosmic Mother, to let her disintegrate the I of fear. Only in this form can one submerge into the illuminating void in an absolute form. Whoever achieves this will gravitate in the direction of the sacred absolute sun and will know the wonders of the universe. Our brothers must practice the technique of meditation as we have given it. Do not forget that the body must be relaxed. That is indispensable. Hamsa is the grand breath. Hamsa is our soul. And Hamsa is also a mantra that transmutes creative energies. Meditation combined with Tantrism is formidable. Hamsa is the key. We know very well that creative energy is useful for the awakening of consciousness when it is combined with meditation. Undoubtedly, it takes the consciousness out of the ego and allows it to be absorbed into the illuminating void. Obviously, the illuminating void is beyond the body, the affections, and the mind. In a meditation room in the Orient, a monk asked a master, "What is the illuminating void?" The texts say that the master kicked the stomach of the disciple and he fainted. Later, the disciple stood up and embraced the master. "Thanks, master, I have experienced the illuminating void." Many would say absurd, but it is not. What happens is that when approaching the illuminating void, a very special phenomenon appears. When a little chicken is ready to get out of the eggshell, his mother helps him by pecking the shell. The small chicken keeps pecking with her help and goes out. When someone has matured, they receive the help of the Divine Mother Kundalini. They emerge from the eggshell of the personality and the ego in order to experience the illuminating void. But it is necessary to persevere in meditation. Meditation must be combined intelligently with concentration and sleep. Sleep and concentration produce illumination. Many esotericists think that meditation should not be combined with the sleep of the body, but those who think in that way are mistaken, because meditation without sleep damages the brain. Sleep must be used in combination with the meditation technique. It must be a controlled sleep, a voluntary sleep, not a sleep without control, not an absurd sleep. It must be sleep and meditation combined in an intelligent form. We must mount the sleep and not allow the sleep to mount us. If we learn to mount the sleep, we have triumphed. If the sleep mounts us, we have failed. This technique allows our students to achieve samadhi, the experience of the illuminating void. We must practice daily. At what time? In the moment we feel inclined to do so, very especially when we feel sleepiness, we can meditate. If the disciples follow these indications, one day they will receive the Tao. They will be able to experience the truth. Obviously, there are two types of dialectics: the rational and intellectual dialectic, and the dialectic of the consciousness. During Satori, the dialectic of the consciousness works. Then we understand everything through intuition or through words and symbolic figures, in the language of the parables of the Christic gospel, the living language of the superlative consciousness of the being. In the being, the dialectic of the consciousness is always faster than reasoning. A Zen monk was asked why Bodhidharma came from the West. His answer was, "The cypress is in the garden." Anyone might say that answer has no relation to the question, but it does. It is an answer that comes before the dialectic of reasoning. It comes from the essence. The cypress, the tree of life, is everywhere. It does not matter if it is in the Orient or Occident. That is the sense of that answer. In the illuminating void, everything is known through the direct experience of the truth. The student will have to become familiar with the dialectic of the consciousness. Unfortunately, the power to formulate logical concepts, even though it can be very brilliant and useful in all aspects of practical life, is an obstacle to the dialectic of the consciousness. I do not wish by this to cast aside the formulating power of logical concepts, because everyone needs them in practical life. But each faculty obviously has its particular orbit and is useful within its field. Outside of its orbit, it is useless and harmful. Let us keep the formulating power of concepts in its own orbit. In samadhi, pansamadhi, or meditation, we must capture and experience the dialectic of the consciousness. That capacity will be developed according to the practice of meditation. The path of profound meditation implies much patience. The impatient never achieve triumph. It is not possible to experience the illuminating void while impatience still exists within us. The ego of impatience must be eliminated after being comprehended. This must be understood clearly. If one does so, the Tao will be received. That much is obvious. The experience of the real can never come to us while the consciousness remains trapped within the ego. The ego by itself is time. All that multitude of phantasmal elements that are the myself are just time. The experience of the illuminating void is the antithesis. It is not related to time. It is beyond time and the mind. Time is the multiplicity of the I. The I is time. Thus, time is subjective, incoherent, awkward, and heavy. It does not have objective reality. When one sits in a meditation room or at home to meditate, one must forget the concept of time and live in an eternal instant. Those who meditate while hanging on the watch obviously do not achieve the experience of the illuminating void. If you were to ask me how many minutes we must spend daily to meditate, half an hour, 1 hour, or 2 hours, there would be no answer. If someone is in meditation and is dependent on time, they cannot experience the illuminating void, because the illuminating void does not belong to time. It would be the same as a bird trying to fly while its claw is tied to a stick. It could not fly because there would be an obstacle. In order to experience the illuminating void, we must liberate ourselves from any obstacle. The important thing is certainly to experience the truth. The truth is in the illuminating void. When Jesus Christ was asked about the truth, the Master kept a profound silence. And when Sakya Muni received the same question, he turned back and walked away. The truth cannot be described, it cannot be explained. Each one must experience it for himself through the technique of meditation. In the illuminating void, we experience the truth, and that in itself is an element that transforms us radically. Perseverance is necessary. One must be tenacious. It may happen that in the beginning we achieve nothing, but with the passage of time we will feel that we are becoming more and more profound. And in this form, the experience of the illuminating void will one day make an eruption in our minds. Undoubtedly, the illuminating void is the holy Okidanok, the active, omnipenetrating, and omniscient Okidanok that emanates from itself. It is the sacred absolute Sun. Happy is the one who can achieve the illuminating void where no one lives, because it is precisely there where they will experience the real, the truth. Perseverance is indispensable. It is necessary to work profoundly every day until the achievement of the final triumph. The experience of the truth through meditation is prodigious. When the truth has been experienced, one feels the strength to persevere in the work on oneself. Brilliant authors have spoken about the work on oneself, about the I, and about the myself. What they have done was correct, but they forgot something: the experience of the truth. Until one has experienced the truth, one does not feel consoled and does not feel enough force to work on the myself or the I. When one has really passed through that mystical experience, it is different. Nothing can stop the yearning for liberation. One will work intensively on oneself to truly achieve a radical transformation, total and definitive. Now you will understand, my dear friends, why meditation rooms are indispensable. Frankly, I feel sad when I see that even though I have written so much about meditation in different Christmas messages, meditation rooms still do not exist in South and Central American countries where they should. What has happened? There is indolence. Why does it exist? For lack of comprehension, it is indispensable to understand. The poor intellectual animal mistakenly called man needs encouragement. He needs something that can animate him in the fight, a stimulus for the work on himself. I know that the poor intellectual animal is weak by nature and is in a very disadvantageous situation. The ego is so strong and the personality so terribly weak that to leave him alone means he will hardly be able to walk. He needs something that can animate him to work. He needs intimate help. This is possible only through meditation. I do not mean to say that everyone will experience the illuminating void at once. Obviously, this experience is possible, but there are different grades, and the devotee can understand it better each time. The intimate impulse of the being will be lived through different experiences, more or less clear. The day will come when he will have the best of experiences, the direct experience of the grand reality. Then he will receive the Tao. Reflect upon my words. It is not enough to listen, it is necessary to know how to listen, which is different. If any be a hearer of the word and not a doer, says James in his general epistle, he is like unto a man beholding his natural face in a glass and then goeth his way. It is necessary to make the word within ourselves. It is not just to listen. The word must be transformed into flesh, blood, and life. If radical transformation is yearned for, it is necessary to persevere.
Inverencial peace.